Yo, what's up? My name is VultureV3 and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In the last video, I told the story of how I got suspended the first week of my junior year for a fight that me and my homie planned. Well, this is the start of how that fight ruined my junior year. So, the day of the fight in the last video was a Thursday. That meant that I was suspended until the next Tuesday. And in the time that I was suspended, my grandparents decided they were going to make me go virtual, which I completely disagreed with because I knew what would happen, but we will get to that. Obviously, I'm 16 at the time. I don't have a choice, so me and my grandparents have a meeting with the principal about how online classes can be more difficult for students than the on-campus ones, and pretty much going over the basics of the program. So, after this meeting, I go home and start like the next day. Now, I figure out pretty quick that this was going to be some bullshit. So, after the span of maybe a couple weeks, I just quit doing my work. I remember at one point, I gave some random chick on Snapchat my online login and got her to do all of my online algebra classes for me, and she actually passed, but that was basically the extent of my completed work. Now, I say maybe a month or two passes. I started the online school in August. Now it's late September, early October, and I just completely quit doing my work at all. At the time, I just wasn't dealing with it. So there's a good chunk out of my junior year, I wasn't even going to school. I was doing whatever I wanted, and I didn't even stop to think like there's going to be consequences. I'm pretty sure I thought I beat the system. Until one day, this lady knocks on my door and serves me papers. Now, if you don't know what that means, I had a court summons because I basically missed a month of school. Now, I was low-key shitting myself when I looked at these papers, but looking back at it, what did I expect, really? Anyway, so I got my court date. I can't really remember what day it was on, but it was sometime in early October, I want to say. And I'm nervous because I really don't know what to expect, and this was only like 3 or 4 years ago, and vaping and smoking was still pretty popular at my high school. All you really had to do was walk in a bathroom, so I was really worried about piss tests, and somebody told me that they could even test me for nicotine. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but the day comes. I wake up and got ready and rode down to the old courthouse. Now, nothing too crazy happened on my first court date. They gave me a public defender, and I remember before my name got called, the judge brought out this older dude in an orange jumpsuit, cuffed and shackled, and he was covered in tats from head to toe. This guy had failed a drug test for some harder stuff, and the judge tried to use him as an example, saying that that's how I was going to end up if I didn't get my act together. Now, not gonna lie, after my first court date, they didn't piss test me. I sort of thought that since I wasn't on probation or anything, I might not get piss tested, but this was before I understood how court works. So, a couple more weeks go by, and it's time for my second court date, and I go through the same thing I did last time. My name gets called, I go up to the podium, and the judge informs me that I've been selected for a piss test, and my heart sinks into my stomach, because not gonna lie, at the time, at my school, vapes and carts were running rampant, okay? So I already knew what the test was going to say. I just didn't know what the outcome was going to be. So I remember this male cop is in the bathroom with me facing the door. I remember some of my friends tried to tell me how to fake a piss test, but for some reason I just said screw it and did it normally. I remember I handed the cop the cup. He looked at it and he said it's so weird. He was like, "You got marijuana in you," and I was just in my head like, damn. So I left the bathroom and I go back and sat down. But surprisingly, all they told me whenever they called my name was to pass the next time I got piss tested. So I got to go home. Now, I'm pretty sure the court day after this one was the same as the first one. I didn't get piss tested or anything. It was just my principal and the prosecutor making me out to be a thug. Now, after this court day, I kind of started trying to get my act together just so I could get out of the court system. I remember I wake up, I go to court, and they call me for a piss test. I went 16 days. I didn't even hit anything at all except maybe a little nicotine, and I still failed. And they were like, "You were supposed to quit smoking," and I was like, "I did," but they didn't believe me because it hadn't been long enough, I guess. I also received court order Saturday school for like a month or two, and I think a few court dates later, I had to go to a drug counselor to see if I was addicted to THC. I just had to answer all of his questions, and according to him, I wasn't addicted to anything. I don't think his paper helped me out in the long run, but so I wake up one morning and it's time to go back to court. This is probably my fifth or sixth court day, and I pretty much knew what to expect. So my name gets called, and the judge is talking about all the bad things my principal accused me of doing in school, which I was in there for not even being in school, so I really didn't understand. But then, if you remember the last story, I told my principal he was tripping. Well, the judge brings that up. So I let out a little giggle without even realizing it, and I'm looking at the prosecutor, and they're talking shit saying I think something is funny. And in my head, I'm like, what the hell? And then the judge goes, "Is something funny?" And I'm like, "No, sir." Then he says, "Step over and have Officer so-and-so cuff you and take a seat in my holding cell." And that's what happened. Okay, guys, that was part two to my junior year nightmare. If you want to hear part three, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. It's been Vulch. I'm out. Peace.